Welcome to this episode of the Gunman. In this video, I'll be taking you right through every step of how to get this black C180 Mercedes Benz painted. Right through from prep work, masking, to the final finish of the paintwork. So I'll start off by putting some 2-pack fine filler in the pinholes that we found in the quarter panel in the primed section. There was some filler in there, we primed it up, and then I actually found some small air pockets that were left over. So I put that in. While that's drying, I'm going to go around and clean the blend areas down just with a clean cloth with a bit of water on it, and then with a clean dry cloth. I'm then going around the edges and masking up the trims and the boot and anything that I may hit while I'm sanding it down. So that's still drying, that filler, so I've come over to the bumper bar. I'm then just giving that bumper bar a bit of a scuff down with some 500 grit on that soft back sanding sponge. By the time I've done that, I've actually come back to the quarter panel. I'm using 240 grit on the block here, and I'm just blocking the entire quarter panel down and blocking that filler out as well, which I'll put into those pinholes. 240 grit is usually okay, and then I'm just using some black powdered guide coat there. We're going to use this to make sure that our sanding scratches from the 240 are going to be completely out, because if you paint straight over that, you'll see the deep scratches. And I'm going to get them out with some 400 grit. Just turning my vacuum on there as to keep the dust out of my face. So this video all up was about an hour and a half, and I cut it down to 12 minutes through editing. So I've just given you a quick look at every single step. So once I've used 400 to get rid of those 240 scratches, next up I'm using 500 grit to go over all of the edges. So if we paint over those edges, you're going to end up seeing a big line there. And once that's done, I've then blown it off in between each stage. When you dry sanding, you must blow it off. And what I'm using here is 800 grit on my blend patches, blend areas, and just ensuring that we don't go too hard, because you don't want to rub through on your blend areas, because if you do, then you're going to have to put some colour over it, because all we're using is just clear coat over those blends. I'm then, as I mentioned, blowing it off in between each step, always inspecting, looking for stone chips and stuff like that. I didn't find any on this one. It was in pretty good nick, and if you do, it's always a good idea to pick them up if they're not too far away from your area that you want to put your colour. So if it's going to ruin your blend, you don't want to go and fix too many scratches and chips and stuff like that. So 800 is what I'm using here on the softback sanding sponge, which is fine to clear over, so it's fine on your blend areas. You could replace that with some Scotch-Brite, bit of a Scotch-Brite pad. Once that's done, we'll then remove that masking that we put on and give it another blow off. So this is the final blow off before you mask it, so you want to give it an extra good blow off. Give yourself a dust off as well. Make sure you're not dragging dust from yourself into the spray booth as well. And once that's done, when coming into the spray booth, I've set my bumper bar up in there as well. And I've just got a rag in my pocket, wiping those edges as I go as necessary. So just back masking on the front edge of this quarter panel is all you need. I've found if you do this correctly, then you shouldn't get too much of an edge there, if any. And then on the boot jam as well, I'm just masking the rubber up. This is how I usually mask up the boot jams on the Mercedes. And just on this trim up here, just making sure it's right up inside there. There's a good gap there, so we shouldn't have any bridging of our paint. And just make sure you've wiped the wheel arch down with a bit of thinners or some Prep-Sol or something like that, and your tape should stick. Then applying the plastic over the entire car. Make sure it's up the right way. If it's not up the right way, then the paint will flake off, and that will come back into your paint job. So obviously when you're razor blading down here, just be careful not to cut in too far so that you don't cut into the surrounding panels and into the paintwork. And then I just like to flip it over when I'm doing the lower section of this pillar here, and then just taping down each section. So I started this job at 7:30 in the morning, which is when I get to work, and the job was finished, ready to be baked at 9 o'clock. So it was 1 hour and a half, just in case you're wondering how long a job like this can take. The car went that day and it looked great. So just going around finishing my masking off at this point here, and then I'm using a degreasing cloth. I'm using the DeVilbiss brand. There's many brands on the market, and they're all pretty much similar. Some of them have they're a little bit bigger, some of them absorb a touch better, but all the good top brands are pretty much good quality. So, and with them wiping that off with another one of the same cloths, so to wipe on then wipe off. And for the bumper bar, which I'm going to be doing next, I'm not actually going to be wiping on because there's no contaminants on there. I pulled it straight out of the box. There's not going to be any oil on there, and I'm just wiping off any dust that's may have been sitting on there, and then I'm just using the tack cloth over the entire job. I'm following the same procedure, but as I mentioned, I'm just including a small portion of each step. But once we start painting, I'll slow it down to normal speed, and you can have a look at my technique a bit better. So now we start painting. You can see straight away with the first coat of base coat, that's already covered up. You can't really see through. I will put another coat on just to be sure that it is covered, because you may get that outside and find that you can actually see a little bit through that paint. Basically, rule of thumb for me is when you get it covered, when it looks like it's covered, you just put an extra coat on, because I'd hate to get the car outside and be able to see through it, because then you've got to pull it in and do the whole job again. And for the sake of a couple of dollars worth of base coat when you're in the booth, it can end up costing quite a lot more money to redo the entire job. So I'm using my DeVilbiss GTI Pro. I've had this gun for quite a while now. It's a 1.3mm fluid needle and tip on it, and I'm using the HVLP Air Cap on it for base coat. This gun served me quite well for a long time, and I definitely recommend getting one of these guns. So I skipped the second coat of base coat on the bumper bar, but we're straight up to clear now after our second coat of base coat. Being that it's a black, it covered extremely well. So for clear coat, I'm using the DeVilbiss GTI Pro Lite. It's also a 1.3mm setup on it, and I'm using the TE20 Air Cap, which is a conventional cap, so it's not HVLP like I was using for the base coat. It's not going to get as much fluid on as what the HVLP caps are going to get on, so it's going to get a bit of a flatter finish quite easier. You're not going to get it on quite as thick and chunky, which is why I'm doing that, because at the moment it's a bit cold in my climate, so I don't want that extra amount of fluid on there. You can end up getting runs sometimes. So for the first coat of clear, I then gave it a good 5 minutes in between coats, and you've got a tack test you can do. You can put your finger on the masking next to the panel that you painted, and when it starts pulling the masking up, then you'll know it's actually tacked off, and usually it's 5 minutes. You can give it up to 10 minutes really, even probably 15, but you wouldn't want to go too much longer. It's just not necessary. So I've also included the footage of the bumper bar for this second coat too. You can see me adjusting my pressure a little bit there. That's mainly just because we get spikes and lows in the pressure. We've got quite a big workshop here, a lot of people working in it, and sometimes the panel beaters are out there on their grinders and stuff like that, and you've just got to be able to adapt and adjust the way you paint and be ready to adjust your pressure up and down as necessary. But you can get similar finishes with totally different setups. So these settings that I give you, there's just the settings that I'm using. And I usually always have my fan wound right open, and a good setting for the fluid is just about 2.5 to 3 turns out. I recommend that to most people, 2.5, 3 turns, and most guns I've found a pretty similar setting is good. If you're in extremely hot weather, then you may want to wunge fluid out a bit because it starts drying, it goes on too dry, and you just want to get more fluid on more quick. And I'd also recommend maybe even having a look at getting the HVLP Air Cap for clearing in the hotter climates too. But as I said, it's cold at the moment, so at the moment I'm not using the HVLP. But Basecoat, it's different. You're not going to get runs in your Basecoat, you just want to get that Basecoat on nice and quick, which is why I use HVLP on my Basecoat. And I use that all year round, no matter what the temperature is. So hang around for another couple of minutes. We've got just three different clips of the car. Once when it's just finished, after painted, outside. We've got a good look at it when it's finished painted in the booth, off the gun, and when it's being polished and when it's completely finished off. At the very end, I've also got a couple of clips here of my two favourite videos at the moment, so click on those links if you haven't already seen them. Check me out on Facebook too. I've got a Facebook page and I post pictures up there. All these videos get linked over to my Facebook page too, so give us a like on Facebook if you haven't already. There's a link in the comments box in the description down below on this video. Give my vids a like, subscribe to keep up to date with all my latest too. So as you can see, the job came up really nice. There's not much dust in it. There's an average couple of bits which you usually get. Quite happy with the job and how it came out. So this is off the gun here, out in the sun, yet to be washed and assembled. This is once it's been assembled and it's in the polishing bay. And it's polishing up quite nice. They gave the surrounding panel a bit of a lick up with the polish too. And this is once the car's all finished off and ready for the customer to pick it up. So I hope you've learned a couple of things. Thanks again for watching, and this has been another Gunman production.